Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back to working on the metal planer restoration. After a little bit of a hiatus there, I've just had some other projects I need to get caught up on, and I really need to get this planer moving forward again, and hopefully that's what we're going to be doing today. I've got in front of me here the assembly that goes across the top of the machine. It has a couple of bevel gears on it, and this basically adjust the screws that move the whole crosshead up and down on the machine. So this basically elevates the height of the cutter on the clapper box in all essence. And we had some issues with this. The biggest issue that I had was this bevel gear that we had some broken teeth on. I've since made a new bevel gear. We did a video on that a while back. Now what I need to do is get all this put back together, cleaned up, and on the machine. So I'm going to zoom you in here, show you a couple little things that's interesting about this, and we're going to get started taking this thing apart, get it cleaned up, and hopefully back on the machine. So this is the part we're going to be working on. There's two brackets, one on each side. This mounts to the top of the columns on the planer, and there's a gear over here. This is basically what drives this up and down. Now, my machine, when I got it, was missing the pieces that went up on here, and I've got those pieces back here. This is actually that same bracket, but it has a second gear here, and it also has a flat belt pulley, and that drives this up and down. Now, these parts are not mine. These actually came off of a friend of mine, Andrew Alexander. He has this virtually the exact same planer as I do, same manufacturer, same size. There are a few subtle differences on his that's made at a different time, but Andrew was kind enough to remove this part off of his and send it to me. And from this, I was able to make some drawings of these two parts in CAD, so I used Fusion 360, modeled them up and created some patterns, and right now I have these patterns off at a foundry over at Windy Hill Foundry, and should be getting some castings back on both this gear and this pulley. They'll be a little bit oversized. I'll have to do some machining to them, but I've still got to make these two parts, and hopefully that will be coming up soon. But I wanted to go ahead and get the rest of this done before then. I'll do some more, give you some guys some more information on that part of the project a little bit later on. Right now, my goal is to just get this thing taken apart and cleaned up. I have soaked it in Evapo-Rust, but that's pretty much all that I've done with this. I did take this end off because I had to get the broken gear off, and have, of course, made the new gear that will go on here. So let's get in here and see if we can get this gear off of this end, get all this separated. I want to get this cleaned up. This piece of metal here is extremely rough and pitted. I'd like to get that over on the wire wheel, try to get as much of that off as I can. We need to get these castings cleaned up and painted, get this gear cleaned up and painted as well. So let's get in here and see what we can do. So the real challenge I've got here is I got to get this key out, and a lot of these older machines, they had a tapered key rather than a straight key like we use today, and you would just take that and drive it in there, and there was a little head on the end that you could pop that out with. When I was messing around with this some time back, I tried to get something to pry that loose, and that head just snapped off. So this tapered key is stuck in there right now. That's going to be a challenge to get out. Ideally, I really prefer keys the way we do them now, which is typically just kind of a regular key, and there'll be a set screw that comes in the top here that tightens that down so it doesn't go anywhere, rather than these wedged keys. They're just hard to get out. Interesting thing on this wheel here, or this gear, it's got the patent information. So it says Beans patent, February 1383, that's 1883. That's when the mechanism that raises and lowers this that whole head assembly was patented. I think it was Albert Bean. I've actually got a copy of that patent up in my files that shows how all this works. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that they had put that on there. I'm going to start here by just taking a wire wheel and cleaning this up. Just trying to get any rust and loose stuff off the end of that gear. I really don't have a good way to grip that and get it out. I think what I'm going to do is take this over to my welding bench, heat it up with a torch, and see if I can cause that to expand it, and then maybe take a punch, a brass drift or something, and see if I can get lucky and just drive that thing out. It's going to be tough because I know that key's wedged in there. All right, I got a rosebud tip on my welding setup here, my torch, and we're just going to heat it up. Starting to see some smoke coming off of it. That's a good sign we're heating up. Burning out some oil, probably. All right, we're going to try it right here to see what happens. May have to get some more heat in there. This is a brass drift. The brass won't damage the shaft. Took an angle grinder and just kind of dressed up the front of this and took a center punch. I've center punched this. Now I got a drill and see if I can get some of that key out of there. All right, I think that's got most of that key out of there now. Try tapping on it again. Just a quick progress report. I'm about halfway through that hub, and unfortunately it hasn't seemed to gotten any easier, but we're still banging and we're still working our way out. Maybe we'll get this thing out here in a minute. About to wear me out. Well guys, I think I'm about to admit defeat here. I've gotten it out that far, probably a little over halfway, and it's just stuck. I can't get it to go any farther. So plan B or C or D or whatever we're up to now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and just saw this thing off. I'm going to take this gear out to the museum, put it on the hydraulic press, and I think on the press we can probably get it out a little bit easier. That's going to be my game plan. And then that'll force me to have to make a new shaft to go in this thing, which I was really trying to keep the original shaft, but I've been debating whether I need to replace it anyway, but this is going to definitely help make that decision for me. So let me go get my little portable bandsaw. We'll zip that thing off and head out to the museum. Well, I wasn't able to get down in here with my bandsaw, but I got in there with my Sawzall. I got the gear cut off, and we'll take this out to the museum. They're closed today. I got a key, but I think I'll just wait till Monday, take that out there, and press that out. Meanwhile, we can go ahead now, I believe, and disassemble the rest of this shaft and at least start getting some parts cleaned up and ready to be put back together, painted, what have you. So let me get this end off. This one should come right out right now, and I need to get this gear off. I'm gonna let this cool down a little bit. It's a little bit hot to touch right now, but hopefully that's gonna come off without too much trouble. Well guys, another change of plans here. Instead of trying to press it out, I think I'm just gonna drill and bore it out. So I've got the gear set up over on my lathe. We're gonna come in there with a drill it out. Probably, I hope that bore is a 1-inch diameter, and I'll probably just bore it out to something close to it, 7/8, 15, 16, something like that. Hopefully, because there's a keyway in there that's been cut in that shaft, once I get into that keyway, it will not be solid all the way around. And I can just take a punch or something and just knock it right out. That's the game plan now. Let's give it a try. Starting with a 3/8 inch drill bit here. There was already a center hole in that shaft from when it was made, so I didn't need to center it out or anything. We got our first hole. I had a 13/16 drill sitting here ready to go, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to that size next. Next, this is a 31/32, so it's just barely below that size. And I think now we can probably just knock that piece the rest of the way out. You can see, like I said, the key's out, and there it is. That's got it out. Got a piece of stock in to make the shaft for over here on the planer, so I need to do a little machining to it though. So the original shaft's a little bit unusual, like a lot of things on this planer being made in the late 1800s. A lot of the dimensions that we consider standard now really wasn't standard back then. And that original shaft, it measures about 1 inch 50 thousandths, so about a 50 thousandths over an inch. So really almost, I think that shaft was actually originally 1 inch and 3/64 of an inch, which is kind of an unusual size. 1 inch 64 or 3/64 is 0.46875. That shaft is a little bit rough, so it's hard to get a really good measurement on it, but best I can tell, it's about 50 thou over, which is right at that 3/64 mark. I ended up just ordering a piece of 1 1/8 stock, but what I need to do is I need to turn the ends down on both sides for those to fit up through the bushing that this shaft will run on, as well as to hold the gear. And we're just going to take it down to 1 inch 50 thousandths. Start by just cutting this. This was just cut with a bandsaw. We'll start with about a 40 thousandths cut. Turning a little bit rough. I think what I'm going to do is put a center in there, and I may need to change this cutter out. I think that may be the cutter not turning good. Give me just a minute here. All right, I have put a live center in here, give some support, as well as switch my insert out. I think we're in better shape now. I'm just going to take a little light pass across there to check it out. Yeah, I can already tell it's cutting better. And I need 10, 20, about 35 more thou. So I'm going to go ahead and take it one pass. Fuzzed off a couple extra thou there, and that fits good. All right, let's clean this thing up a little bit. Let's clean this thing up. I'm gonna make a nice chamfer back here in the back side of this, just to take that up to the other diameter. And we're gonna put our support back in there. Much better. I finished turning the shaft. I went ahead and did the other side. This one actually has 2 diameters on it. Plus I put a keyway. And sorry guys, I did that off camera. But you've seen me make keyways and turn shafts many times in the past. But we are ready to get all this put back onto the machine, I believe now. I also, off camera, went and cleaned up all the castings. We got them painted, and everything should be ready to go on. Because this shaft is thicker in the middle, and just turn down the ends, I'm going to start by putting the outboard bracket up there, housing, and we will slide it in, and then we'll come in and slide the stuff in on from the other side, because we can't move the shaft all the way through the parts because, again, this part's a little bit thicker in the middle. No big deal. Let's do it. Start by mounting this bracket up here. All right, got that side in. I'm gonna put my bevel gear in here. This is the one that we made. Sorry, I know I'm in front of the camera there. All right, here we go. I'm gonna worry about tightening this up later. I'm gonna have to do some adjustments to get the crosshead level, but it's in there. And I'm gonna just, tell you what, I'm gonna just snug that by hand. But we still got some adjustment in it. All right, this side's on. Let's go to the other side. It looks like, by the way, our bevel gear is meshed up nice, and looks like it's going to work fine. Had a lot of people tell me that there was no way it was going to work, but it does. Now on the other side, we will start by putting our other bevel gear on here. This is the original one. This is not one that we made. And put our support here, support bracket, and get some nuts and go ahead and bolts and go ahead and tighten that down. All right, that side's tight, and that side's tight. I did put a key way in this shaft. This will be for this gear to go up on, and just go ahead and slide it on. There we go. There we go. And one little modification I did, guys, is that I did decide to do away with that wedged keyway and put a proper set screw on this to hold it in place. I just don't like those wedge keys like we had that we dealt with to try to get this thing apart. So I know that's a modification from the original, but in my opinion, it's an improvement. And this is not that's really historically inaccurate for a machine this age. It's just a better way of doing it. I imagine in their later machines, they probably changed to this, putting a set screw in here. It just works better. It's easier to get apart when you have to do maintenance on the machine later on. So that's what we did. And the other thing that I did is a little bit of a modification from the original, is notice that I have this shaft sticking out a little bit farther. It's not flush. And my thinking there is, guys, is another modification that had been made to this gear. Someone had drilled and tapped a hole in there and put a handle on this so that they could crank this by hand rather than using the pulley system to make fine adjustments. And I like that idea, but I'm not crazy about just having a a handle sticking out of the gear. So I think I'm going to either fabricate or maybe make a pattern and cast a handle that fits up on this hub that comes out that we can use to crank it with, and we can just use that keyed shaft there to do it with. So might even have one laying around here, but that was my idea, to have a hand crank handle up here to do that with. So I think we got all this back together. Went ahead and highlighted my patent information. I think that's kind of cool. The Bean patent, February 13, 1883. I've still got to get the gear that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video and the pulley that goes behind it remade. I've got those patterns. They're off at the foundry right now, and I'm waiting to get the castings back so that I can machine those. And we'll have a video on that whenever that comes along. Well, guys, that is going to be a wrap on what we're going to do now. Like I said, I do still need to come in here and get these bevel gears tightened down. But to do that, I need to spend some time adjusting that crosshead to get it running perfectly level, then tighten these set screws up so that it will stay level when it rises and lowers. And like I mentioned, we've still got to do the gear and pulley, as well as do a handle over here, but all that's going to come a little bit later on as we move forward with this project. But we do have this back installed. It looks like my bevel gears that I made are going to work out just fine, which I'm really excited about. And we are ready to move on with the next step of restoring this 100-year-old plus machine back into operation. Well, guys, that's going to be it on this video. As always, thanks for watching a lot. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And those thumbs up and comments are always appreciated. And we'll catch you on the next video.